evening, everyone. Welcome to the 6th regular meeting of the Board of Directors of School Administrative District number 52. We will start the Pledge of Allegiance led by me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First up is to act on the minutes from the 5th regular meeting, which was October 17th. Does anyone have any comments, thoughts, or suggestions for those minutes? Seeing none, they are approved by unanimous consent. The next up on the agenda is a report from the board chair, of which I will pass this evening, and we can move straight on to public comment. Before I read the preamble, is there anyone here wishing to speak in public comment this evening? Okay. So just as a reminder to anyone that is interested in speaking, our board meetings are conducted for the purpose of carrying out the official business of our schools. It is important to note that the meetings of the board are open to the public. However, they are not public forums. At each full meeting of the board, time is allocated to provide opportunities for citizens and employees to express opinions and concerns related to the matters under consideration by the board. These comments shall be within the guidelines set forth in policy BEDH, which is public participation at board meetings. Copies of that policy are available on the district's website. I just want to highlight the following points. That is, the chair is responsible for recognizing all speakers. We ask that speakers identify themselves by sharing their name and town of residence. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes to express their views. Speakers should direct all comments to the board, specifically the board chair. This is an opportunity for the board to listen to the opinions of the public that relate to school and education matters, but it is not intended to be a conversation or a debate of issues. We know that school-related issues can be emotional, but we ask that civility is maintained. We will not permit profanity, gossip, defamatory comments, shouting at one another, or comments that disparage or attack individuals or groups. The board is also faced with many important issues, so for the sake of efficiency, the board discourages duplication or repetition of comments. The board will also not permit complaints or allegations against staff members. We certainly care about these concerns, but they are personnel matters which the board is not permitted to hear in public. If there are complaints against staff, these will be handled appropriately through our complaint policy KE. To reiterate, this is just to highlight a key points. Please refer to policy BEDH for a complete description of public participation. That said, anyone wishing to speak?
Jimmy Childs, Leeds. I do not only speak for myself. I lead a group of over 300 looking for change, and I'm sure I represent over 5 people in the 500 people that signed a petition. This whole system is set up so that complaints can be pushed aside. In fact, the system is set up so that parents like myself have to rely on children who might not even recognize that something is wrong. So adults make complaints, and these complaints can be brushed aside by the superintendent's interpretation of policy. Just as happened with emails from staff urging politicians to vote against a bill that would have protected kids from obscene material, that we never got any answers to, that I myself asked for the answers to. Why is this board not more responsive? Why does it have to be led reluctant to action? You all heard comments last spring from one member where she admitted that teachers having conversations with students about personal matters is commonplace. Given that this behavior is against policy and confirmed just recently through emails between Carrie and I. Why do you wait for the public to speak up and demand action? Instead of using your authority to communicate with the public and staff that her comments should not be taken as the board condoning such behavior. When you ignore such behavior, you give the community reason to not support the schools. With property tax so high from school budgets, the school board would be wise to start thinking a little more about its actions or inactions that undermine our support. A simple statement read out at a meeting and sent to the staff saying that this board does not accept or encourage the behavior described in Ms. Allard's statements last spring would be a good gesture to show the public. To show that the board does pay attention and does care what the public has to say and ask. So can we get something like that, a statement, something read that it's not commonplace to speak on personal matters with kids and staff, you know? Simple, easy enough to do. If you guys can't do it on your own, a board member could make a motion to maybe make it happen, which shouldn't really have to happen like that, you know? So I speak for a lot of people, and I'm not going to stop speaking up, whether people like it or don't like it. There's other issues that are going to be resolved this year, like the FOA request and whatnot, that it's been over a year that I haven't received, you know? So, like me or not, here I am, don't really care, you know? So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Childs. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, seeing none. We'll move on to communications. First, I have a few. One is 5.11, an acknowledgement of the donation to Tripp Middle School's Tiger Takeout Food Pantry for $1,200 from Lawrence Hathaway, Michelle Hathaway, and the Tripp Middle School football team. Thank you very much. As well as an acknowledgement of a quilt donation, $200 value, to Leeds Central School for a raffle with monies earned to supply the school store Best Nest Variety. And that donation was from Sandy Burchard. Thank you very much, Sandy. Moving on to superintendent communications.
Yes, I have the following resignations. Heather Grenier, Special Education Administrative Assistant for Administrative Secretary for Tripp Middle School, Green Central School, effective today. And Thomas Veralt, Special Ed Tech 3 at Tripp Middle School, effective last Friday, 10/25. And then the following, we've got more subs. 2 at Green, 2 at Turner, 3 at Turner Elementary, 2 at Turner Primary, another one at Green, and then another one that's district-wide elementary. So, all good news.
Okay. Any questions about any of the announcements? Okay. Adjustments to the agenda tonight. You can see there's just a couple items noted in red. There are no further adjustments to the agenda. Again, the only one that is noted in red is the consideration and approval of the Finance Committee recommendation item 10.4. We'll get to that when we get there. And we'll move now into committee reports. We'll start with the Finance Committee. Is there any Finance Committee report, Ms. Mishu?
We did have a special meeting Monday morning where the Transportation Director did present to us a proposal to purchase a snow scraper or a bus scraper. It's on the item later to discuss.
Okay. We'll move on to Plant Transportation and Building. Mr. Purington.
We met tonight and we also met Monday. We met with the EEI to discuss the priority planning report and through the feasibility study. We looked at, grab my notes, but tonight we discussed part of that priorities within that report that we feel like we need to jump on. We discussed the Leeds Central roof, looking to send out to bid to have the roof repaired and replaced. We also talked about the TPS water tanks, looking at that, the joint, and possibly come up with a joint tank situation up there because it's at end of life. Also discussed the high school roof, about looking for revolving funds for that for next year. And we also talked about the wastewater treatment plant again, and that's actually kicking off here to be posted in the newspaper tomorrow.
I think that's what.
I believe so.
Yep. And then we also looked at the reaching out to get receive generator quotes, and we'll give you guys a recommendation for next meeting, and pretty much covers that.
Very good. Next PTB meeting, December 5th? I believe, unless there's something
Yes.
other emergency arises. Moving on to policy, Ms. Johnson.
We did not meet today. Our next meeting is November 14th, 5:30 at Tripp Middle School. We do have some policies on the consent agenda coming up. I can give a brief rundown of those if people wish me.
Yes, please.
Okay. So the policies on the consent agenda were voted on unanimously in committee. Heidi Poulin, who's our Title IX coordinator from the high school, she was present at the meeting, and Rebecca Drysdale, our special ed director, was also present. And we asked them to be there because the policies needed to be updated due to legal changes to the policies. So they were kind of there to walk us through those. So you'll have JFABD, which is admission of homeless students, IHBAC, which is child fine, that's the special ed policy. JIE, this is a new required policy that provides guidance and support for pregnant students under Title IX. The last policy is BDA, which is the board organizational meeting. And we're just editing the existing policy to reflect what we already practice. And probably the biggest change in there is going to be that it no longer requires finance committee members to be voted on by secret ballot. So, but yeah, so those are, if anyone has any questions.
Great. Moving on to the curriculum committee, Ms. Lard.
We met tonight, and we had the opportunity to take a look at some sample atlas sites. It's something that Teresa and Carrie often talk to us about for the curriculum and standard work for the district, and it was nice to be able to go to some example websites of other school districts across the nation who also use the Atlas program to see like when MSAD52 is ready to put that Atlas public to the community, what it could potentially look like and what will it be able to offer for parents and community members to be able to see how they can follow through the different content areas and the curriculum that they are expected to be holding to, because they say this is what they're teaching. The standards align with those curriculum resources. So that was really informative and very helpful for us. We also got an update from some curriculum work with the math, the visual and performing arts, and health and PE. They are the three that are really working to get standards and assessments uploaded into Atlas right now. And everything's really looking like they're really right on track and doing very well with the work that they're doing. And the math also has a team right now looking at some different types of curriculum for K-8, for resources, and they have visited a few neighboring school districts that use various different resources. They've had vendors speak to them as well, so they're still collecting information before they make any final decisions. So that's where the math group is at this time. We also meet again on December 5th at Green Central School.
Thank you. Yes?
Is there any plan, I'm assuming there is, to eventually present that Atlas information to the full board? I'd just be curious to.
So yes, Teresa can share out to you some of those public sites that we were able to view tonight that are just examples of other school districts from around the country, because they are public, they are live, anyone can look at them. So Teresa will email that out if you're interested.
I think the plan is a presentation on the 14th.
Oh, even better.
For us specifically, our stuff, our people, you mean?
Teresa's on the plan for the 14th to do a presentation about Atlas for the full board, so providing some of that information. So she just set the curriculum team up, the committee up for the full board, there's a master plan.
It was a practice session.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think people are going to be interested in it. I sat through a presentation on it a couple years ago when curriculum and policy worked together, and I think it'll be helpful to have everyone see that. I think everyone my favorite parts of the evening, the student representative report. Coral.
The end of the quarter is November 1st. We have a JMG career fair on November 7th. And we have a craft fair here November 9th. And the football playoffs are next week. That's all I have.
Very good. Any fun Halloween-related events going on, or is it pretty much?
Is this another trap question?
It's not a trap question. Sorry.
It's a
I might
genuine
do some
question.
makeup tomorrow.
No.
That's all.
Oh, okay.
I'm looking at Evan going like, no, there better not be any. High school kids and elementary kids don't do Halloween differently.
No. Okay.
When is when's the high school musical?
The musical is December 6th and 7th, and we're doing 16 edition, and tickets are on sale now.
You should bring some to a meeting.
So
Bring some tickets to a meeting.
there's a QR code on Facebook.
Bring the QR code to the meeting.
Okay, I will.
There we go, there we go.
Do we get the staff discount?
December
We
6th.
have MSAT.
They do have one for MSAD52.
Employees with an ID.
Bring the
Something
QR.
like that.
We'll put the
Something like that.
QR code in the
That was my
If you send it to me, we'll make sure.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, all right.
Very good. All right. Thank you, Coral. Administrator reports. We'll start off with the Green Central School principal, Mr. Parker.
Good evening. You have received my board report dated October 30th. Are there any initial questions before I highlight?
The only thing I saw was a slight uptick in referrals, but they were maybe just because they were so low before, or is there a specific reason that you're?
Yeah,
Believe
so the uptick, and again, we're focusing on our majors right now. That can be a variety of different pieces. The incident referral forms that we have, we do watch that trend. That doesn't specifically mean, oh, there's a particular widespread problem and there's a particular, whatever that particular outline is. What we do have is, and I was very pleased, we had a meeting this morning. So we do an analysis, a closed-door analysis of where are our particular needs. And so we have PBIS, our Positive Behavioral Intervention and Support, at various tiers. We have the Universal Team, which is Tier 1. We have the Advanced Tier Team, which is Tier 2. And we do a really in-depth analysis of the where, the when, the who. And without getting overly specific, I was very pleased to walk away with from the combined team that where we had the greatest need, every one of those particular areas of those particular students, we have a plan already in place for those students to kind of address. And it's a variety from anything from a referral to check-in, check-out, parent involvement, a trusted adult to check in with during the day, pep talks, phone calls, home, parent meetings. So again, we want it to be accurate as far as what's actually going on in the building. And then just as important is the framework that we have to respond to that, and that is working very effectively. So we will continue to update. Next board report, I could give the board a kind of another cross-analysis, kind of another perspective, ways to looking at it while still maintaining student confidentiality as well. So,
Okay.
yeah, we're on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, it was not significant. I mean, it was just, but.
Yeah, oh yeah, the comparison is really interesting, so. Other questions? Okay. The other piece that would be wonderful to bring to your attention is we resurrected, I believe it's been 5 years, but we had our most recent Gator Family Breakfast. And that involved RSVPing with families and our incredibly talented food service department, particularly, we are so proud of them at Green. The turnout was amazing in two sessions in an hour. And this was all hands on deck. This was not food service, just kind of holding their own. We had staffing, serving, we had folks greeting. We served 353 breakfasts, and that's in an hour. And then that was before school. And as soon as the kids arrived, there were another 100 breakfasts served. This was not done as a fundraiser. We asked for enough money to cover costs, and it was a spread. And we're talking scrambled eggs, sausage, tater tots, smoothies, yogurt, the whole, I mean, it was really amazing, extremely well received. It had a great vibe to it, just having the whole community show up. And we didn't really plan it this way, but it was on October 25th, so last Friday. And we thought that that was kind of a positive way to sort of, kind of acknowledge and celebrate life and community.
Very good. I'm glad you resurrected that. It's been over 10 years, but I went to a few of those a while back. So
Awesome.
they're great events. Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be the last one this year, so just wanted to put that out there too.
Great.
I missed it.
Thank
You missed it?
PTV meeting.
Oh.
Such a good citizen.
So committed.
Try to make that.
We'll try to figure out what date the PTV meeting is. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. All right. Next up is the Turner Elementary School Principal, Ms. Conway.
Hi, so I'm just going to follow up with what Mr. Parker had said a little bit about behavior. If you look at our comparison, it does look much better. I think compared to last year, that's largely, we have a team, so that really helps a lot. Our staffing is much better. Does not mean that we still don't have things that are happening. So I just wanted to touch, it's very similar, but to touch base on that. I think for us, when we look at this data in various meetings, like staff meetings, periodically as a whole group, but then we look at them in PLCs, which is when the grade level teachers meet together. We have an front office meeting is what we call it, but it's with the school counselor, representative from special ed, the dean of students, the nurse, and myself, and our ATT coordinator. And with those, we try and figure out, like, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, there might be one or two kids that we like, if they're the prominent student right now that needs something. So we try and look at the function of their behavior. Why are they doing what they're doing? And sometimes we have an observation form, and one or two of us will go in and do different observations on that student in like that hard, the difficult area. And sometimes if we're not able to like get to the bottom of it, we have Tara Skiff and Valerie Caruso, who are working special ed. Tara Skiff is a school psychologist. So we save like the ones that were like, this is really tricky, I'm not sure if this is accurate, like this is what the behavior's from. But we'll use those to try and figure out what the behavior is so that we can put in an intervention for that student that will help mitigate or change that behavior. I think just like anyone, sometimes something is an extenuating circumstance or something really horrible might have happened or something outside of school, and it might impact that student in school. And so those supports need to look a bit different because, like trauma or whatever, it might be looks different on everyone. But anyways, I just wanted to give that background because even though I think it looks great, we still have things that we're working on and trying to be really strategic about what supports we give. So that we can not just like cover up anything, but help the student change. So, and then I have something else, but does anyone else have anything else about the letter? Any questions?
I don't see any. I said I don't see any, so
Oh,
feel
okay.
free to move forward. Yeah.
And so I just wanted to say, I don't feel like I give this person enough credit, but last Tuesday I was able to sit in on part of the intermediate band and our beginning band that our music teacher Ellen Stevens does. And one of the songs that the intermediate band is doing is a song from Guardians of the Galaxy. And it was at a high school concert last year and they were doing the same song. So it may sound a little bit different at our winter concert, but I just thought, like, the work that she does with the kids and the way that she highlights them, some of these kids are the kids that like might not always feel successful in class. But I'm listening to them, and they are like cruising, you know, they're playing the trumpet better than most 8-year-old, 10-year-olds, whatever it might be, could play anything, right? So I think the work that she does, she puts in a ton of dedication and a lot of time in like trying to help kids learn the proper techniques, which I think can be very frustrating sometimes for kids, especially when they want to do it their way. But just working with them, and then also seeing some of these kids that have decided they want to switch instruments, and having them have that opportunity to switch at, you know, like 6th grade. They might start in beginning band, but they can move up in, you know, by the winter, and she'll work with them to get them to that point. So anyways, I just feel like I've never really, just being in there, I was like, that's pretty awesome. So, and then we have a Halloween parade tomorrow and a contest. So.
Thank you. Okay. We move on to the Assistant Superintendent's report. Ms. Gillis?
Okay, so I'm going to just share a little bit about what happened today. It was a great day. I was actually at Turner Primary School, and I was working with the staff on the implementation for the new instructional resources called Into Reading. And the day started, we actually had a national trainer on site with us. So the day started with a question and answer, staff meeting, and then we went right into kindergarten classrooms. And I just wanted to share with you a little bit about what our kindergartners and our first graders are doing. So the kindergartners were working on problems and solutions, and they were listening to stories and trying to identify the problem and then possible solutions. They heard 2 different stories, and they were answering and discussing that. And then across the hallway, we saw opinion writing. So the students were, they had worked with their teacher to identify things that they liked and things that they didn't like. They were really focusing on liking. So today they were writing about their favorite food in the cafeteria, and pizza and tacos were definitely favorites. Some of them also like strawberries, but they were able to write the words I, like, and then they continued to write using resources around the room, or if they needed help sounding things out, and they drew pictures to go with it. And then I also had a chance to observe, to be part of 2 first grade classrooms, and in these classrooms, this was both reading. They were hearing a story called The Nest, and the first graders were actually, in one of the classrooms, were annotating the text. They were being read to and following along with the words, and it was about a bird who makes a nest, and they were able to watch it outside their classroom window. And then the trainer who was leading this work for us to all watch her teaching this told the kids, okay, so what did you learn that the nests are made of? And they said twigs and leaves, and then she said, okay, circle the words on the page, and they were circling the words on the page. And then she asked them, like, what changes did you see in the birds? And they identified that they saw the birds growing and some other things, so then they wrote down in their books what they saw. And then after they finished the story, they had a chance to go back to their seats, and they have these books called My Books, the ones that they were annotating in. And they had the opportunity to draw a picture about what they learned and then write what they learned. And the kids all started the sentence, I learned, and without any prompting, they were putting their finger down to make sure they left spaces. And I was really impressed with what I saw from our students today. I just felt like they were able to, I mean, I never would have thought that first graders were probably annotating text, but they really were. I was very excited to tell Carrie when I got back there later today. So that's what I saw today. We have had training at Leeds Central School as well this week. I wasn't able to make that. And then in November, we have, the trainer will be back at TPS and also at TES and at Green Central School. So.
Very good. Thank you. Question? Sure.
Another question. My daughter came home and said that there was somebody at Leeds today in 5th grade, and she said, Mom, she just had the nicest voice ever. She just spoke so well and said how like they talked about a story and how it goes like this and it comes down, and she just really enjoyed whoever this person is. So I think she's coming back tomorrow.
She was there yesterday.
She was there yesterday, and I don't know that she'll be back working with all teachers on our January workshop day. But we have her going to each of the schools so that she can be in the classrooms with the teachers, helping them implement the components of the program. And the teachers have been able to choose what they wanted to see for lessons. So she prepped them, and then there's also been a time for questions and answers. They just maybe aren't sure where to find something. There's a huge online component, which is amazing and overwhelming. Like if I go in, I can find things, but then I can't find them again. So we're just trying to get used to all of that.
Awesome.
That's good to hear
It's
feedback.
been like really great reading stuff, like the whole intro to reading. She's never been like super stoked about reading and writing even, and now she's like right in there. So
That's good to
I
hear.
really like that lady.
It's good to hear. I'll tell, her name is April. I'll tell
Okay,
April
let
that
April
she
know.
has a fan at Lead Central.
Yes, Jamie?
I don't know if you have an answer to this or not, but I was just wondering, when you start to implement a new curriculum, like, do we know, like, research-based, how long it takes to kind of be able to collect data to see whether that new curriculum is making a positive impact on?
That is a great question. I have heard and read that there can be what's called an implementation dip, where because new teachers are learning how to teach and the students may not be used to it, there can be a dip. I don't know, we're gonna watch that. I will say from my experience with first graders and kindergartners and their printing, their writing was legible today. And I could read it, and they could read it to me, which doesn't always happen. Like I could say to them, tell me what you learned, and they would point and read I learned, and then what they learned. And same in kindergarten, I like pizza or tacos. So we'll be gathering information from teachers and we'll be watching this. One of the components is there are multiple types of assessments, and those can be tracked so we can monitor student progress, like individual students, but then also as classes and as schools. So the administrators will be watching that as more of the assessments are put in online, like if the scores are put in online. So yeah, it's something we're really watching closely.
And they're starting that now, the data collection?
Yes. So, they're in varied places. They might be assessing, but like today we learned, okay, so if you give a student a written assessment for kindergarten and first grade, it's really appropriate for them to have paper to take a written assessment on. But then the teacher would be entering it in, and we figured a way so it's about a minute per student to do. And it will take a while. I mean, the teachers are really working hard to learn this program. That's why we think it's so important that our trainers, the trainer is on site working with them, and then when this is all done, there will be 6 days of on-site training with her, and the instructional coaches and the principal are part of this training, so they can learn and see as well. And I will say that I spoke to somebody who implemented in a neighboring district, and they had a half a day of professional development with no additional days planned for teachers. I don't know how they would do that, but.
Okay.
Well, very good. I'm glad we're not in those districts.
I am too. I'm like, no, we are. Yeah.
So we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
I got a bunch. So we, I think my first year, when Wally first came on board as our tech director, we disposed of some technology, got bids from recyclers, so we're in that process again. So we've sort of declared a whole list of MacBooks, well, these are all iPads, declared them obsolete. They're anywhere from 5 to 2017, really old. So he's going to be getting bids from recyclers to see what we can get for them. He anticipates hopefully $15,000 to $20,000 from obsolete recycled stuff. So more to come on that, but just letting you know that we're using the policy to move some items out because they're just sitting here taking up space. Our October 1 count is complete. This, for those, just to remind people, and especially for those of you who are new to this process, this is one of the most important data collections because it has a direct impact on the size of our subsidy. Last year, we did a lot of correction of data as well as using the alternate economic form to try to get a much more clear number, vision of the economic status of our students, because that leads to more subsidy, because that's how the formula works. So, drum roll. I was panicked, I will say, I was panicked 3 weeks ago. I was like, oh my God, I was working with Jason, like not enough people had filled this form out, but it's all turned out okay. So we have 10 more students this year than last year. So last year our submission was 1,999. This year it's 2,009. I think Rebecca last meeting talked about the potential, what it looked like for special education students. We ended up with 13 additional. So last year we had 416. This year we've submitted at 429. And then for socioeconomic status, we are up 106 students, which I'm just gonna say all the time, we don't want kids to be socioeconomically disadvantaged, but we don't wanna undercount them. And so that is what had been happening for a couple of years. So last year, the count was 648. This year, the count is 754. That represents a substantial amount of money because in the formula for particular students, students who are English language learners, students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged, the formula provides a weight to the calculation. So a typically developing student without disabilities, who's not an English language learner, will count for this much money, and then an additional weight, typically of like 0.5, I think, for others, so that they count 1.5 times. So we will end up with more. So it puts us, and just having 10 more kids, like we're unusual, lots of districts losing kids, so even though it's 10, because it's 10 times about $8,000 per kid. So all of that is good news. Questions on that? Okay. Yeah.
So that's about 70% of the count you had that are disadvantaged?
So the total, yeah, I can't do the math that quickly, so I'll take your number.
What makes them, what are some of the criteria for that? Just curious. That seems like a lot for, and that's all 3 districts?
All 3 towns. So it's not 70%. So we have 2,000 kids and about 754 of them. So it's probably more like 30. More than a third. Like maybe a third, right? Which I think is, honestly, I think that's probably a true number. And where we were 2 years ago, before we started using the alternate economic form, was a substantial deal. It was like a cliff. Because during COVID, the state had sort of frozen your free and reduced lunch rate number. And so we were okay, but then when that rule ended, it was like, and that was, my first year was a substantial reduction in subsidy. So we've sort of crawled out of that last year, and so now we're in a much better place, sort of getting money that matches our student population. So there are 2 ways to count, to develop that number. The first one used to be through the free and reduced lunch form, everybody had to fill out, but now that lunch is free, that form's not required. So the lunch program will receive from the state, it's like direct cert, so it's like the students who are in some kind of state program that provides support if for poverty, so it might be food stamps, it could be whatever programs, foster students, like anything like that. So they get that number automatically, who those kids are. The rest of that number comes from what you, for those of you who have kids in the district, saw 800 times me sending, fill out this form, and it's a self-report. Like, it's just parents putting in this, you get a chart that says, this is, if you meet these criteria, say yes, if you don't, say no, and people look at it and self-report, and the state accepts that number because the free and reduced lunch form is no longer really necessary. And
asking questions about like income or what are,
Yeah, the chart has an income for like the size of your family and how much money you make, and then it doesn't ask you to, I don't think the form asks you to put anything in. It asks you to look at the, for those of you who did it or saw it, it asks you to say, do you qualify based on this chart? And so you just look at your income and the size of your family and you say yes or no. It's less information than what the free introduced lunch form requires. So,
Yeah, I just think it's worth repeating again. You already said it, but we are not like celebrating that
Correct.
we have a high population of people that are in
Right.
need, but it is very good that we are getting an accurate number so we can get as much help from the state for it as possible. So,
and it's actually a low number compared to a lot of districts around us. I mean, Lewiston's number is significantly higher. The district that I live in, SAD17, is significantly higher. So it's high for us, but comparatively, we're not necessarily considered a high poverty district, whereas others around us, RSU 10, I suspect, has a substantially higher poverty rate. So, anything else on that? Did that answer your questions?
Yeah.
Okay. So in the strategic plan, we talked about beginning the process of implementing a regular early release beginning next year, a 1 hour early release on a regular basis to replace our monthly half days. So I'm beginning that process of planning with leadership teams at each school, what that would look like, what they would use that time for, how we would, what benefit it would have for teachers. I've also started to gather daycare contacts so that I can reach out to daycares and sort of like, hey, this is something we're considering. Obviously, we will vote on that. You will vote on that at some point, but sort of just doing the pre-work to make sure that we have a solid plan in place to present to you all for approval if you decide to do that. But making sure that daycares, that, you know, would be a change for them for sure. Make sure they have a heads up and capacity and things that we may not have thought about. And then lots of communication with families. But the goal is that instead of having random half days that people might forget about or like don't know, it's a consistent thing that you can count on, that you know. It buys us a decent amount of extra professional time for teachers, but is not so disruptive as those half days are. And there's consistency to them. So I'll provide you more information on that, but I just wanted you to know that's sort of early planning phase. So I started that process today with the middle school leadership team and talking about what that might look like for them. I also started my day at Turner Elementary School, going over the findings of the main school management insurance walkthroughs where we might have had some safety violations that need to be attended to. So I am my own personal roadshow going school to school, sort of like saying these are the things that are actually illegal that we need to change like ASAP. And so they were the first staff to sort of get that presentation. I think I've got them all going to get done within, I think by early December, so that every principal can then work with their staff to make those corrections. A bunch of corrections have already been made by the facilities folks, but these are things that are in people's classrooms and materials and things like that. Rebecca and I are doing the early stages of looking at whether or not to begin to provide services to our 3 and 4-year-olds. If you remember CDS, there's been a big shift in the law and the providing services to students who are identified with some kind of disability or needs as a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old has been provided forever from Child Development Services, CDS, that's part of the Department of Health and Human Services. It has moved now into the DOE and moved into public schools. So money comes with that. So Rebecca and I in the early stages, there's an opportunity to move in, like there's schools that started this year, cohort 1, we didn't even consider that. We're like, too many unanswered questions. There's cohort 2, which is next year. We're sort of dipping our toe to see if that is a possibility, and we'll be ready for that. There's lots to learn. And then there's a deadline. So cohort 3 is sort of like you have to do it by that 3rd year unless there's some extenuating circumstances where the DOE grants you a waiver. I don't see how we would ever qualify for a waiver. So that has implications for budget season, which is kind of why we're starting to look at that now, so that we can have some hard numbers and know our capacity as a district to do that. The one thing that we are going to start working on from PTB is the diesel tanks are end of life in about 2 years, so we need a plan. Those are, when you drive between the high school and the middle school, the tanks are like right in the middle of the driveway where the buses fill up. They have to be replaced within the next 2 years, so we're going to start the process of looking at that. And then on the consent agenda, there are some job description changes. So the stipend for the visual performing arts coordinator has been split in half. It's the same pot of money, it's just being split between 2 different people. They were operating that way anyway, but this, when we did negotiations last year around stipends, it made sense to split them. So what you see is sort of putting, getting rid of the old job description and putting in this split position. I didn't write the stipends down. They're not equal though. One stipend's a little bit larger than the other because of their responsibilities. There's also an updated director of guidance one that was super old, very outdated. And then the school closing procedures are on there, and there's really no big changes to that. That's all.
Any questions for the superintendent? Seeing none, we shall move into the consent agenda. Again, the consent agenda is a collection of items to be acted upon collectively unless a board member asks that a specific item be acted upon individually. I'll just ask now if there are any items on the consent agenda that a member would like to see pulled. Yes, Mr. Shostak.
The 3 items under 8.2.
The 3 items under 8.2. Okay, we shall move those, not all the way to the end because we have a executive session, but we'll move them to say 10.5 and a half. Yes, Peter.
8.5.1 and 8.5.4.
Okay, we shall do the same just before 10.6. Making sure I note this appropriately. All right. So that puts our consent agenda to read as follows. There were no other hands, right? Okay. Item 8.1, which is a review and acknowledgement of superintendent recommendation of deletion of job description K-12 visual and performing arts coordinator. 8.3, which is approval of the 2024-25 school closing procedures. 8.4, consideration and approval of the Finance Committee recommended August operating expenditure reports. Consideration and approval of the Curriculum Committee recommended first reading and acknowledgement of policies. Should it be Policy Committee? Yes.
Yep, jeez. How did we miss that?
Consideration and approval of the Policy Committee recommended first reading and acknowledgement of policies. 8.5.2, IHBAC, Child Find Policy was revised. In 8.5.3, JFABD, admission of homeless students revised. Does someone have a motion for that agenda? Mr. Shostak, second by Kyle. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Okay. Moving on through old business to new business, we will start off with a presentation by the Leavitt Area High School principal, Mr. Shaw. Welcome.
Thanks.
I have copies.
So, thanks for having me. Glad I could be on the agenda tonight. Wanted to spend a little time talking about where we're at in terms of fall here at Leavitt Area High School. it's been busy, and I'm not gonna cover everything, because the list would go on for too long, but, we've got a couple of, just threw some pictures up here today, a couple from this spring's, Hive activities. We had a group that was studying the Induscogga River. This is them chatting with some, folks about the river up at Rumford, and this is one of our students working in the shop welding up. I believe that was in addition to his exhaust going out of the back of his truck, which I think was a great addition to the back of his truck. And then this fall, we had a picture of our, that's a freshman class, their hallway decorating, and then our Explorer River Valley students were out in the woods over in Leeds, working with Nat Val and a forester, talking about forest management practices. Like I said, in the Explorer River Valley class. So they've been out and about in several different places, and I'll mention them again in just a few minutes. Some demographic information. Our enrollment as of 2 days ago was 559 students. That's up from we ended last year at 543. That doesn't mean that all the 10 new students in the district are at my place. That just means that ours are up from where they were. We have 156 ninth graders, 137 10th graders. The 11th grade class is our smallest at 123, and the seniors are coming in at 143. Our percentage of students receiving special education services is 22.8. That's a slight uptick from last year. It's not like over the moon higher. It's a few percentage points higher. And then the number of our students identified as economically disadvantaged, the percentage is 34.8. That's pretty similar to where it's been. So that's our demographic information. Fall activity. It's been brisk, the activity around this fall. We had homecoming, and I know I mentioned that in my last board report. Well attended. We got a couple of pictures of some floats over here. The theme for the floats was video games. So we got Pac-Man at the top, and the seniors had Mario Brothers down there at the bottom. We've had some community service projects going on around the building. I mentioned the ERB just a minute ago. Our Explorer River Valley students were out the last few weeks stacking wood for folks around the district, getting wood in as it is wood stove season. Has been for the last couple days, maybe not tomorrow. We also had a presentation from the Maine Bureau of Highway Safety. They came in with their Choices Matter program. The gentleman's name was, and I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget, David Francisco was his name. He's an accomplished singer-songwriter who suffered a spinal cord injury. So he goes around and tells a story about how he battled back from that injury and was a contestant on American Idol in 2018. And very great, powerful message, great guy, was super appreciative of the students, and we had kids that went to talk to him after the fact, and he was just really pleasant and did a really good presentation. It was well received by the students. As Coral mentioned, we have our JMG, our annual JMG Career College Fair coming up next week, I believe. And I got to give big thanks to Ms. Corchesney, our JMG specialist. She's arranged for 40 vendors, colleges, military, direct-to-employment folks to talk to students. All of our students, grade 10 through 12, will get through to meet with the folks. We're going to get most of the 9th graders in, but scheduling-wise, we're not going to get them all, but we'll get as many as we can through the gym. That's grown into a pretty impressive display. If you happen to pop in on that day to see the activity in the gym, it's pretty impressive. And it's a very diverse group of folks. So we had last year, I don't know if this one's back or not, but LePage Bakeries was there, so they were a big draw because they had donuts. We had Margaret Murphy Center was there with a table. All branches of the military were represented, and colleges from all around were there as well. I believe General Dynamics was there. There were several of the larger construction companies in the area, and one of the electrical contractors that was a former student was in as well. So a really good group of people that come in. Our student-led conferences are coming up on the 21st of November. So that information will be going out soon because it is November here in a couple of days. We got to get the Halloween tomorrow though. No, nothing special planned. And hope just to get through it without anything special going on. We also have, for our first time, we'll be hosting a robotics competition on the 23rd of November. We've not done this before, so our robotics team, the middle school, high school robotics team, will be hosting a competition here. I think it's going to take up most of the downstairs, from my understanding. It's going to be quite a scene with teams coming in from all over the place. And then our musical is that first weekend in December. I believe it's the first weekend, the 6th, 7th. And it is 6. The high school version, it is PG-13, just putting it out there, based on the content of it. It's Henry VIII's wives, and it's sung by the wives, so there you go. Let's see, did I miss anything on that? No, nothing. I had some more pictures coming up. I do have some more pictures coming up. More pictures of our homecoming floats. I think this is Coral down here as a mushroom, I think, with Super Mario Brothers. And the one up in the corner is another picture of the kids over in Leeds working with Nat, talking forestry. He's got a chainsaw, they cut a couple trees down. And that's always a big hit with the students when they cut the trees down. I also wanted to share our school goals. These were developed with the school leadership team. And we talk about it as a staff and put some action steps together, which we're going to come back to with these. But the goals themselves, the first one is around school climate, improving relationships across the board, student to student, student to staff, staff to staff, faculty, staff, school to the greater community. Like, it's all the big picture around school climate. The second one is around curriculum materials. We've got Atlas in there. We developed our goal and action steps before we talked to Teresa, so our time frame may be a little bit accelerated from what she was looking for. That's okay, it'll be all right. And also includes some work with some common assessments, which is currently happening. I'll speak more to that in just a minute. And then our third goal is around implementing, updating protocols for RTI work with students, and this is an extension of work that we started last year. So, yeah, go ahead.
Could you, RTI?
Response to intervention, so struggling students. And I tried to cover all the acronyms, I apologize. So the first goal is to implement the BAR program. That's building assets, reducing risks. You've heard me talk about that before, and you've heard Jana talk about it as well. I'm going to talk more about that here in a couple slides, but this is our second year with the BAR program. And this year we are including 10th graders. Last year it was just 9th graders. Utilize HPT grade level leaders. This is our first, we have not had, for as long as the building has had HPT, we've not had grade level HPT leaders, which I don't know why, because now that we have them, I can't figure out why we didn't. We are accessing them, or we're using them to review HPT expectations and activities that we're doing in HPT. They're doing a great job, and I expect that it's going to help us moving forward a great deal. And again, that's our first year with these guys, but they're doing a great job. Continuing to work and streamline High Week, trying to make it so that the first year there was a steep learning curve, so we're trying to get some procedures in place, some templates in place, so that it's not using all of our time that we have to plan for, and we can get back to doing some other stuff while still continuing to do High Week. Looking at plans and expectations for conferences and open house. Open house is something we do every year in the fall, and it's something we're always like, how do we get more people in here for open house? And we're continuing to work on that. I've got 3 or 4 staff members that are ready to put our heads together, so next year it'll look a little different than it has. Utilize the Holocaust and Human Rights Center to work with staff and students. We had them come in and talk with staff. At the start of school, the folks from the center were outstanding. Did a great job of just talking with faculty around bias and hate speech, and to be on the lookout for that and how we can work with that and help to address it. We have not had a job shadow program for 12th graders in the past. I have a group of staff members that are interested in investigating what that might look like to get students out and shadowing potential careers. So we're in the very foundational stages of this. You will not see me coming back to you in June and talking to you about how we have implemented this amazing job shadow program. We are investigating what this might look like. And then implement existing cell phone policy and investigate potential changes for next year. I'm going to talk more about that again. You've heard me talk about phones a couple of times. I'm going to talk very specifically about phones here in about 5 minutes, so I'll come back to that. Second goal, which again was around curricular materials, and our first goal, which we started last year, our first step, which we started last year, we're continuing now, comparing our existing 9 to 12 curriculum with the most recent state standards, because they are constantly changing, or at least feels like they're constantly changing, making sure we're staying up to date with that. Connect with middle school teachers to review middle school curriculum and transitions between the two buildings. We have and continue to do that. We are working on revising curricular documents. We're looking at entering information into Alice. We pumped the brakes on that a little bit so we don't get too far ahead and so that it looks consistent pre-K to 12. We were not all going at the same pace, and it was looking different from grade level to grade level, which would work counterproductively to what the curriculum committee looked at tonight. So we would prefer it to be continuous from start to finish. And then common assessments, as I mentioned, we're working on those in all the content areas. More specifically, I can speak directly to our math teachers in Algebra 2. They worked at the start of school to develop some Algebra 2 common assessments, which they have since implemented, and they are now working with the instructional coach to evaluate that data and adjust instruction as necessary. So that sort of thing is going to be happening across the board, I would say, in the next few weeks. Most all of the networks will be working on that. And then the last one just goes along with assessing that data. And our third goal, our action steps, again, has to do with BAR. This is around that response to intervention. But the BAR program is all about student data, both academic and behavioral data, and just general, like, how is the student doing data. So that is big into addressing student needs. Looking at and revising RTI teacher protocols. So if we have a student who's struggling, what's the best way to get that student the support they need, particularly if they're not a 9th or a 10th grader. So what are we doing specifically with 11th and 12th graders where they're not necessarily part of the BAR program? And then, let's see, down at the bottom, the rest of those are all about those protocols. And then the last one, reinvigorating our Adopt a Senior program. For a long time, we had a program, Adopt a Senior, where we had struggling seniors, staff from around the building, faculty and staff from around the building, would pair up with them to help to support them to get them through senior year. That, for a litany of reasons, kind of has pitched off a little bit, and we're looking to reinvigorate that. So Mr. Haylock and Mr. Galway are going to be taking that on here in the next couple of weeks and looking at seniors who might need a buddy. So the BAR program, again, this is a slide I think you saw last year, but this is just all the different aspects of supporting students. Regular meetings with a core group of teachers, talking about students that they share in common, engaging families, conducting regular cohort meetings with those teachers, we call those small block meetings, and making sure those meetings are very student-centered and they don't go off the rails and start talking about things that are outside of our sphere of influence. And so this year, as I mentioned, expanded to include both 9th and 10th graders, 9th and 10th grade classes. These printed back to back, so I apologize when I flip through the pages. And we have the 9th grade groups they're tight. So we have 2 9th grade teams of teachers who shared students in common. Last year was more haphazard because we didn't start doing this until like the end of July last year. This year we were able to lock down the 9th graders. 10th grade is a little more where 9th grade was last year as we're trying to sort out how this might work. Knowing full well that 10th grade probably will never be as tight as 9th grade because kids kind of do this as they get older and they have more teachers to try to make in common. So it probably will never be as as locked in as the ninth grade is. But we're trying to maximize the number of students that have teachers in common. So ideally, you have a group of teachers together, 3 of the 4 content areas, try to get social studies, science, English, and if you can, math. Math is a tough one because so many kids are in different places with the math. But try to get them to have around 65 to 70% of the students in common. Ninth grade, we are well beyond that. 10th grade, we're still in the range, but it's not as tight as that. We meet weekly in small block meetings. We have restructured our staff meeting time so that we have our bar meetings for we are meeting for 30 minutes and then we're moving on to our staff meeting, which is a major change for how we're using our time. And Carrie mentioned the investigation into the potential release time for next year. This is meant to be a huge help for this work, huge help. And then Community Connect meetings, those are more of a monthly meeting. Those are also very structured, talking about students, but they include guidance counselors and administrators. And Mr. Haylock, our Dean of Students, is our bar coordinator. He and Mr. Galway, my assistant principal, help to facilitate the meetings, both 9th and 10th grade. All of our guidance department is involved, and I have 20 or 21 teachers that are involved between 9th and 10th grade with bar activities. Attendance. We are working on attendance. It's been a point of emphasis across the district for a while. Derek and I were talking about it over the summer, and he was like, I got an idea. Let me lay this on you. So he laid it on me, and I'm like, let's try it. So his idea was to keep track of attendance by HBT on a weekly basis. So what percentage of, what's my HBT's percentage for attendance for the last week? He worked with Jason Breton to get into Power School and figure out how to calculate that. So now Derek measures or calculates HBT attendance every week, and this HBT with the highest attendance is awarded the Hornet Hall of Attendance poster to hang outside their HBT room for the week, and they get this cheesy 3D printed poster that came out of that's a little trophy that Judith's looking at me funny, and I'm going to answer. I'm going to answer in just a minute. Mrs. Boutas been working on it with a 3D printer, and it's ready to go. The problem is we had no idea, and this is the last thing down here. We had no idea that we were going to have so many HBTs at 100% attendance. So last week we had 11 HBTs that were at 100% attendance. We do not have 11 little trophies. We have 4. So that's the bottleneck on that. We have made more posters. Those are easy to make and laminate. So we've done those. We haven't got the numbers for that. But it's been interesting. It's been fun. Derek then shares the percentages out to the whole staff, so everybody knows. There's no secret around what the attendance was around the building. And as you might expect, I have some folks that are a little competitive, and they want the poster. So we have it's been a good addition and a good way to talk about attendance.
Evan, can I ask, Coral, has your HPT gotten?
Twice.
Woo! Okay, did you check it?
No, I didn't get
I'll tell.
Oh! But you've got the poster outside your door?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll get on the trophies.
Nice work.
Next up, I said I was going to come back to phones. I'm coming back to phones. I'm just going to tell you right now that I'm not going to get on my soapbox for you tonight. And as Judith knows, I can get a little passionate about this when I start talking about phones. Mostly because I'm going to get a little bit on my soapbox. Mostly because I know they have been intentionally created so that they will distract students for the maximum amount of time. It wasn't students, but humans. They will distract humans for the maximum amount of time. That's why they were created the way they were, and that's as far as I'm going to get on my soapbox. So, phones, this is not a new issue. Back in the summer of 2019, we had a committee that got together up in the library. There were like a dozen of us. Judith, you were there, I think. And to talk about the issue of phones in school. And we created a pretty effective policy. And in the fall of 2019, we implemented said policy, and it was going great until the winter of 2020. And then, well, we all know, I'm not gonna get into that. And so it got away from us, and it was not a priority. This last spring, it became a priority again, particularly for me because I was standing on my soapbox. So I did some gathering of information. There's a lot of information out there, none of which says cell phones are good for kids. None of it. There isn't one person that's willing to say that. And so there was a study done by the American Psychological Association that I was reading on, a study of studies of neurological imaging of teenage brains from 2013 to 2022. The U.S. Surgeon General has a statement out on cell phones. And interestingly, I read an article written by a high school student who's at a school who they don't allow cell phones anymore. And you would have thought that her take on it was going to be, I want my phone back. That was not her take on it. Her take on it was, I don't mind not having my phone, but somebody needs to tell me how to do the things that I used to do on my phone without having my phone. And really what it boiled down to was, how do we share information around the building without having our phones? And this student's mother said, we used to hang posters up on the wall. Like students would get together and make posters and hang out on the wall. So they got together and made posters and hung them up on the wall. But she didn't know that that's what they used to do because they've always just shared it in their Snapchat or whatever. Or something else, probably not Snapchat, but anyway. So we came back to it, I came back to it at the start of school with the phone policy that we created in 2019, which basically, to sum it all up, phones are not to be out during academic time, and we defined academic time as any time between the bells during class. That includes HPT and study hall. There was, and written in the policy as we wrote it, there were a little like some weasel words in there. If there was a good reason that the teacher needed to have the cell phone out, then it made sense. I crossed that out. There is no good reason for students to have cell phones out in class. So we have implemented it. I'm not going to say that it has gone like without hiccup. There have been hiccups. We have a few students who struggle with it, and that's okay. But the overwhelming sense is that it's been a great addition to the building. Students are more engaged in class, they're talking in class, they're having academic conversations in class. It's better. There's less phone drama, and I'm not going to get into the details of what phone drama is, but there's less phone drama. I said in our webinar that was put on by the New England Association of Secondary Schools and Colleges last week on cell phones. This is a problem across the globe. So there were schools represented from Europe, the United States, New England, and ways in which people are trying to address it. This is an issue that everybody is trying to find the best answer to. But basically what it boils down to is getting back to the focus of doing school, making education a focus, and also working on the art of conversation with kids. How do you have an appropriate conversation? So there's a lot of setup here, but it's gone well for us. I spoke with my colleague down at Morse High School just today. This year they have implemented, you may have heard of these things, they're called yonder bags. They're little pouches, neoprene pouches with magnets. Kids put them in the pouch to start the day. The magnet closes, you can't open it until you have the magic wand to unmagnetize the bag and open it up. He said it's gone better than he thought it was going to go. It's actually going really, really well. And students there's no phones in the building all day. You don't see a phone. And if you do, it's easy to address. So that's how it's going here. The last bullet is what's next. To be honest with you, I want to go no phones all day. That's what I want to do. And I've talked to Carrie about it. We've talked to the rep from the Yonder company. I think the next step is to have a conversation at this level around a policy around no phones in school and how we're going to address it. So that's what's next for me. Without to get too tall in my soapbox, but I wanted to sum up for you where we're at on phones over the last few weeks. And I personally have been able I've been in classes a lot, and in classes, been able to see a dramatic increase in student engagement, dramatic. And it's just been this slow drip over time of the phone kind of creeping in, and well, I'm done with it, so there you go. That's that. And then the last thing I want to talk about, we're doing enrollment classes. We have a lot of dual enrollment classes going on. That's where students are earning both credit here at Leavitt and credit through a college or university. These over here are new for this year with CM. We have a forensics class, physics with lab, intro to literature, U.S. history, statistics, introductory French, and introductory Spanish. The great thing about all these over here, these are taught by faculty here at Leavitt High School. So that's outstanding. And then we've also had existing agreements with CM around English 101, Psychology 101, and History 152, which is basically world history. And then art, Iva Damon in art is instructor for Art 115, which is drawing, and Art 119, which is sculpture. And we have how that breaks out. We have 118 students enrolled in dual enrollment classes. That's a total of 272 classes. 219 of which are the ones that are taught concurrently here at Leavitt High School. And it involves 9 post-secondary institutions. I'm not going to read them all to you, but there's 9 of them there. So, Joe, that's my presentation for tonight.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Peter, go ahead.
I'm want to applaud and the phone thing, I'm 100% with you. I do have a question though. Might be more towards Carrie than you. Junior high, are they following a similar pattern?
Yeah. Evan and I probably have similar experiences. It's easier to manage them at the middle school. They have a no phones during school. They have to remain in their bags. It's easier to get middle school kids to comply. It gets harder and harder the older they get. So Jana has not experienced, like that has been more under control down there. So kids can't have them out during the day. And kids, for the I've done one meeting with a family around a phone compliance issue there. There's lots of other stuff going on, but in general, it's not an issue. I have seen, and so I'm glad you said that there's been some hiccups because I haven't seen disciplinary issues come my way from the middle school around it, but I do know, which is not surprising to me, that there are students who are going to dig in and it results in some disciplinary action. And I think looking at those yonder bags could help with that in terms of just like those students who are really going to struggle to not pull them out, and then they get in trouble and then they dig in and then it becomes a big fight, whether or not that's going to help resolve that piece.
In talking with the principal down at Morse, it hasn't resolved it completely. There's still a few that are struggling with it. But the feedback for the most part is the kids are appreciative of the bag because it just takes it off the table.
Right,
Like it's
right.
not even a thing.
Yeah.
Look forward to
And
discussing.
there's a big group of them. He said he has 30-ish or more that just leave their phones in the bag in the office all day, so they don't have to worry about it.
Anthony?
You had said that you've expanded bar to 9th and 10th grade. Expanded from what? Was it just 9th?
It was just
before?
9th grade last year.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Go ahead.
Just about dual enrollment, is that for just juniors and seniors, or is it any?
The classes that are dual enrollment are typically probably 11th and 12th graders.
Okay.
There's a potential for maybe a 10th grader to get into forensics, but most of these would be 10th and 12th grade.
And then my other question about that was like, I just remember it from in high school and having like taking AP courses and having, that was how, if you took that test, I don't know if this is the same thing.
I still think.
Okay, so thing, and the transferability of those credits and how that works sometimes for kids when they get to whatever college they might be going on to. Have you noticed that these transfer?
So
well?
I'm not gonna say it's 100%,
Fair.
but there's a, I can't remember what the term is, but there's some sort of agreement between the community colleges,
Okay.
Southern Maine,
And those.
CMCC, York County, that they will accept, and those, the UMaine system will accept all of those
Okay.
credits, and a lot of schools do.
Okay, thanks.
Is there anyone else? Maybe we should implement a no phone policy here at the board, maybe.
Whoa!
I'm looking,
I knew he was gonna say.
I'm
But
looking
anyway.
at the law for
This is fine,
Title
it's fine, I'm just
IX.
joking.
I know it's coming.
Thank you, everyone. All right.
She has a barfing kid out.
And I have a barfing kiddo, that is
Yes.
also.
A barfing kid, oh jeez.
That is rugged. All right. So, moving on to item 10.2, an act, we'll entertain a motion to act on the recommendation of the superintendent for principal contract extension. Would someone like to make that motion?
So moved.
Peter, seconded by Anthony. Carrie, would you want to?
Yep, so as a reminder for folks, when we did principal contracts last year, all of those principals had been working the full year. The principal for leads started in October. All the principals, the evaluation is done every year. A 360 survey is offered to the staff. Get a good return on that, so that the principal and I can review that and look at sort of the feedback from the staff in addition to their self-assessment and then the final assessment that we discuss and finalize together. So there's a lot of information that comes in to be able to, for everyone to feel confident that what's going right at the school, that the principal and the teachers are on the same page. So I hope you have seen, as I have seen, that the principal and the teachers are on the same page at Leeds and lots of progress is being made. So I'm super excited to make this recommendation.
Any questions on this? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Move on to item 10.3, which is consideration and approval of the Finance Committee recommendation to purchase a bus ice scraper system. Would someone like to make that motion? Crystal. Seconded by Jamie. We'll have some discussion. My assumption is this was not a unanimous recommendation, which is why it's before us. You want to just give us a highlight?
Sure.
Yeah.
So this was presented to us. The concern was that was spending funds for this that were not originally budgeted for specifically for a scraper. In talking with Gabby, looking at it, they were able to allocate funds by way of, they're estimating about $10,000 savings on the insurance premium this year, which went down. They're letting us know that they're not at full capacity for personnel, so payroll is expected to come in under budget. And they did find a number of spare tires in, I'm not sure where they were located, but some spare tires that are expected to bring down the budget on the tires that they were originally going to purchase. So we felt those funds combined would be enough to fund the $25,000 that's being requested without needing to request it from a different warrant, which is why a couple of us felt comfortable moving forward with the recommendation to purchase it. Currently, they are scraping snow from the top of the buses, and Gabby, I don't know what it's called, the box.
The Connex boxes, they're climbing up on top of the Connex boxes and moving snow that way.
So they're climbing on top of it. A discussion was, could that be made safer? I think that was debatable. There's some concern as to what could happen to a mod rate on a workers' comp contract if an employment injury does happen. And my thought for showing that would cost more than $25,000 if that mod rate did shift in a negative direction and an employee fell off. There's also only 2 employees that are currently scraping the buses, and they're coming in around between 4 and 5 to do that, because the facilities team is too busy cleaning entryways for this building and other buildings to be able to do it for them. So we also discussed the retention and attracting people to come work if they probably don't want to do that themselves. So that was part of the concern, and then it was brought up they could use a roof scraper, which I think is kind of what they're using in addition with the box, but they obviously want to not have to do that manual labor.
Is there a dissenting opinion? Yes.
My major concern falls whenever we have a significant purchase, and I call a $25,000 purchase, potentially a little bit more, when we're all said and done, a significant purchase. And when it's not put in comparison with all the other purchases in the district, I think it's an unfair expenditure of funds when it's not put up against all the rest of the needs of the district. Pick any department in the district. and they're all gonna say that they have a significant need that did not get funded last year, whether it be a principal or whether it be the food service, or, no, actually, they get everything they need.
I was
We'll
gonna
take them
say,
off.
they're the only people who.
They're the only
can
one that
fund
doesn't, that can't complain.
And we
But
wish
so
we
pick
could.
the rest of them. So that's probably one of my major concerns, because yes, there is the potential of a workers' comp claim if somebody has an accident. But there are many activities that happen in this district that could have a workers' comp claim if it's done poorly. One of my concerns was we went right to this without looking at other ways of maintaining or cleaning the tops of the buses, which is quite honestly, they don't need to be on top of the box, which can be an issue if they're just climbing up there. There's a simple roof rake. I've cleaned off many a bus with a roof rake, but they're not doing that. They go on the other route, and they didn't look at other ways to do it that aren't going to cost $25,000. And also I have concern that the most dangerous part of the remnants on the bus, what can be taken off the bus, is the ice. And I still have significant concerns from my past experience in talking to other places that these machines do not clean off that inch of ice when we have an ice storm. And unfortunately, we're more of an ice storm nowadays than a snowstorm, so that is what is one of the more dangerous things that come off a trail truck top or the top of a big bus, is that sheets of ice. And I'm sure this does a great job clearing off snow, but snow really doesn't do this damage that the ice does. And I just don't know that this was something that came over the past month or two, and I'd like to see it have its full vetting through the whole normal system, have it vetted, find places that choose to use them, make sure that everybody who says they have them are actually using them. I'm told if you go down to the Lewiston garage, the Lewiston line, that they don't often use theirs, even though they have them. So I'm just not a fan of using it, and especially doing it out of order. Yes, we can find the money, but we're gonna have something come up in a few minutes that we're gonna need another $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 for. So at some point, we're gonna have to start saving money for the future as well. So I'm just concerned, I think it ought to be vetted with everything else in the district and not given a special treatment.
Okay. Thank you, Peter. Crystal?
Is Lewiston the only place around that uses it, or?
I don't know, they'd have to there was a variety of places that do and a lot that don't.
Jim had reached out to a number of districts to speak to them. A lot of them have this model, and then older models that are looking to upgrade to this model.
Okay.
He said that all the individuals that he spoke with who have them are very pleased with the outcome and the removal of the snow and ice.
Okay. And my other question was regarding maintenance. I see that there's a 1-year warranty on mechanical and electrical parts. Any idea if something breaks 2 years from
After
now?
that, how much it costs, I don't know. I didn't ask those questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, Evan, yes.
Where are we gonna put it?
Yeah.
So the conversation came
I might have
up.
missed that, I apologize.
That's all right.
No, it's movable, so during the winter season, it will be here. But transportation on the high school property is a part of that conversation around the diesel tanks and all of that. But it is movable, so when it's not in season, it can be stored in a different location.
Like the tennis courts.
Don't even bring up the
Rubbing salt in the wound, isn't she, Peter?
Not
Wow.
only are we gonna get-
lifelong sports, we throw them under the
No
bus. in this
hold
district.
bar. No hold bar up here.
Yes, Ashley.
It is on wheels, and at the meeting, he explained that during the winter, it would be in the back parking lot,
Yeah.
where they would drive through it, and he also said, it could probably change, but that he would also store it there throughout the rest of the year. But that could be subject to change.
Okay.
I'm not sure where you part of the conversation. I don't know the order. I was saying.
Anyone else? You said generally that there are a number of school districts around that are unhappy with older units, but like the newer units.
They're not unhappy with the older units.
They're not.
But they've had it for some time, and they're looking to upgrade as well.
Okay.
But did he have, I'm sorry.
No, Peter, it's kind of along what you were saying. I'm trying to.
Well, I'm curious, and I know it was brought up, but was there a full list of who we talked to?
Yeah.
He did have that. I did not get it from him. I'm
So we don't
sorry.
have the list, but I do remember initially he called a couple places that were in southern Maine, and I was like, well, they don't have weather like we do. We got to find people on this side of the turnpike. So I think Skowhegan might have been one of them. There were a bunch of districts that were sort of on our side of the turnpike where the weather is more similar, and those were the people that he did talk to. Because initially he was like, yep, they have it in York. I'm like, why do they have that in York? It's raining half the time.
Skowhegan has one. and they
Skowhegan
are
was the
upgrading
place,
to
yeah.
a newer one.
Yeah, so there were a couple places that were definitely in our zone of weather where he was checked, and they said they work good and like them and are wanting to upgrade to.
Anthony.
Excuse me. So part of the plan to pay for this would be to utilize payroll savings, that there are positions that haven't been filled. If we were to, I assume we need those positions filled. We would like them to be filled.
That'd be great.
So if we purchase this, we're essentially locking ourselves out of filling those positions for the rest of the fiscal year, yes?
Not all of them. $10,000 has already come off the budget for insurance premiums. The tires, which I think he has to be between $3,000 and $5,000. Gavin.
Can I speak to the budgeting?
Yeah, if you have. Yeah.
Okay, so I had also identified that when we budgeted for gasoline, it was based
Gas,
on
right.
what our average cost was and what we anticipated. Again, that fluctuates, we can't guarantee it, but over the last month, it has been 50 cents under per gallon where we anticipated. If that were to continue, that could save us anywhere from $5,600 to $14,000 for the year. In addition to that, the tires, we anticipate not spending the full $30,000 that was budgeted there. The personnel, yes, we have gone a full 2 months now without being fully staffed. So that helps us. It doesn't mean that we're going to need to keep that open in order to be able to afford the rest of this. And then Jim has also made it a point to really monitor the parts that are going into things, making sure that things are getting replaced and serviced in a timely manner as opposed to waiting for things to really blow up and have a huge issue. So he's keeping an eye on that as well.
Anyone else? All right, I guess we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of Finance Committee recommendation? Those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. Any of that's 9, correct?
Yep,
5 to 4. Okay. The motion passes 5 to 4.
Can I just make sure I've got, do you have the names?
No, I was gonna ask.
Okay, so I just want, because 4 is a smaller number. Anthony, Peter, Crystal, Kyle, or no? Is that correct? So then everybody, okay, great, thank you.
All right. Moving on to item 10.4, consideration and approval of Finance Committee unanimous recommendation to revise the payroll specialist job description and salary. Is there a motion on the floor for that? Crystal, seconded by Peter. This is a unanimous recommendation, but not on the consent agenda. Any summary on this one?
Yeah, I'll let Carrie speak to it more. We did have a special meeting just for this to discuss a payroll position that they're looking to fill, and I'll let Carrie speak.
Okay.
So I'll give a summary and then have, ask, yeah, what's her face over there, Gabby's a little bit, oh my God.
What's her face?
Brain,
Yeah.
my brain.
Feeling the love.
So yeah, so I think it's probably on me that it's not on the consent agenda. I just felt like this is a fairly significant change. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody was up to speed. So what we are looking to do, and Gabby did a lot of this research, is shift this to a position with more responsibility, which then would make it also a higher paid position. So Gabby did some research around, and I sort of reached out to other districts to find out what they were doing. So we have churned through 2 payroll specialists since the retirement of our longtime payroll specialist, and have found that what we're doing is not working in terms of keeping that position and keeping qualified person. If you go to the last page, we've sort of given you some numbers, so I want to talk through that a little bit. So I reached out to districts that are near us or match us. So our current salary in that first column is $51,500. I found out pretty darn quickly. And Gabby and I, we feel bad because we actually did research when we first posted this position 2 years ago. We used the database for municipal management around what people were paying. We thought we were in the right ballpark, and clearly we are under by a significant amount of money. So Auburn, obviously they're a bigger district than us, but they're paying 60. Farmington, actually it's more towns, but they only have 300 more students than us. So it's slightly bigger, but not, in my mind, they're ginormous. They're paying 67. Gardner is almost exactly the same size as us, and they're paying 61. So RSU 16 is not in here, but I reached out to that superintendent. They're paying $60,000. So that was our first learning. Okay, we're not paying enough money. But our second concern is and I think I've shared this before, but we don't have a lot of overlap of what people are doing in the business office. There's almost no cross training. Nobody can do really any part of Gabby's job, and none of them can really do each other's job. So in terms of making sure the district's in a position to sort of be resilient with absences, sort of be able to function. The example I gave to the finance committee last week was when I got here, we didn't have a business manager, but we were fully staffed with an experienced payroll specialist, accounts payable, and HR specialist. None of them could print me a budget. I went 3 weeks when I got here without a hard copy of the budget. We are in that same place now. Like nothing has changed, because even though we've got an awesome business manager who's cleaned things up, there's too much work for each of those positions in the skill levels that everybody's got for that cross-training to happen. And so our hope is that by increasing the responsibility of this position, and therefore increasing the pay and the sort of expectation of qualifications, that we will have somebody with a wider set of tools and skills to be able to really begin that process of building resiliency within that department, so that we're not so sort of like dependent upon everybody to always be there all the time. And right now, we're not in that place. So that is the reason we're bringing it. Gabby, if you want to add anything to that.
I think you covered it really well. My concern, I've been in this role for just over 2 years. By now, I should be able to do all of their jobs, hands down with my eyes closed. I'm not able to do that. I have not had an opportunity to sit with them, to figure out all the pieces and feel confident in them. I can do payroll, I'll tell you that. And I feel confident in that, and I'm glad, because that is the biggest piece of this puzzle. If our staff doesn't get paid, we're having a problem. I need redundancy as well, though. We need to be able to have additional levels of approvals and making sure that people are reviewing things appropriately. You know, I still want oversight of all the district finances, but I want to be able to ensure that if my accounts payable specialist goes out for a week, she doesn't come back to having to process every single purchase order and, you know, late payment issues and whatnot. We can still just process it smoothly, like nothing ever happened. We should be able to do that. My hope was, with the payroll person coming in, we would be able to start initiating that we would be able to build that position to take on additional responsibilities, to grow it into something similar to an assistant business manager. That didn't work, and now we know that part of that is that we're not paying enough money in the position. We need to make a change so that the business office can succeed, so that the district continues to run smoothly.
So Gabby's looked at the budget. This lives in the system administration warrant article. That warrant article is the tightest budget of all the warrant articles, because it's really just central office. It's school board, me, Martha, and the business office. It's very tight. There's not a lot of supply lines there. Like everybody, you know, we have all the employees. So Gabby's identified funds where we think we'll be able to cover it, but I think making this change mid-year, it's possible the warrant article will go over. But we don't feel like the warrant article is going to go over so badly that we won't be able to, the board has the authority to transfer about up to 5% and maybe even more through the audit process if a warrant article has gone over. We did that my first year here, transportation had gone over, even although when we kept going with the audit, the numbers weren't exactly the right, that was a whole other thing. But we have the authority to do that if that's the case. So what you have here is sort of like, best guess, a minimum salary of 65. In the conversation with the finance committee, I think, we have to wait and see what we get for applications, but at a minimum, it would be 65. So we're gonna be right on the edge in terms of that warrant article by making this change now. Our hope would be we could have somebody in place for after the holidays. Maybe.
I'd love to fill it before then, but
Yeah.
I think realistically, that's not going to be the case, and that's okay. I estimated this based on a January to June timeframe.
Any further questions on this? Yes, Kyle?
We put it up for applications if we get 0.
I got 3.
And they're all unqualified.
They weren't the qualifications that I really am seeking. We've settled before and it didn't work out well.
Any other questions? Yes, Anthony?
Not a question, but I have an amendment to make.
An amendment? Okay.
So under essential functions, number 5, I move that we strike the words "at least."
I'm sorry, strike which words?
At least. So lifting at least 10 to 20 pounds.
I'm not looking at the right thing. Got it, thank you.
Is there a second to that? You're seconding the amendment? Okay. So discussion around the amendment. Yes, Jamie?
This appears in every single one of our job descriptions, correct, Carrie?
Yeah, this part is legal language that we get straight from legal counsel.
Yes, Peter?
I'm concerned if we take those words out, this person would say, no, I'm not gonna lift that box of paper, which weighs over 20 pounds. So by doing this, the person we're hiring says, well, I'm only supposed to lift up to 20 pounds. Anything over that is not my job description. So I'd have concern that would cause, I doubt it would ever cause an issue, but I hate to put something in that might.
Sure. Anyone else? Yeah, Gabby?
The only reason I could foresee that causing an issue is that in the business office, we're regularly lifting bankers' boxes filled with files that I guarantee you weigh more than 20 pounds.
Sure. You go ahead, Anthony.
So it's not so much the words "at least" that trouble me. It's that it's at least a range that goes from 10 pounds to double that amount, which you can't have at least this or that if those are separate, if those are different things. So if establishing an actual minimum is necessary, and if the guidance from Gabby is that it's probably going to be more than 20 pounds, then it should read instead at least 20 pounds, and then I would be happy to amend my amendment or withdraw my amendment, but then put in another one that would strike the word, the number 10.
Okay. Jamie?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we've had this conversation before, I believe, at a meeting. And, oh, I remember what it was. Tammy was talking about, well, what happens if they can't, blah, blah, blah. And the conclusion we came to was that this exists actually from the IDEA Act, the Individuals with Disabilities. And it is to list functions so that, and then if they cannot perform these, then legally we have to give them accommodations so that they
Starting
can,
point for the accommodation.
a starting point for accommodations so that we can do what is necessary for them to perform their job. So this is from, I believe, federal legal.
Any further thoughts and questions on the amendment? Okay, all those in,
Well, so I will withdraw the amendment to strike at least.
okay, is that seconded?
He has-
Oh, no, you just withdraw the amendment altogether.
But he has to.
I'll withdraw my second.
Well, but, yeah, okay, so the amendment's been withdrawn altogether. Okay, so we're back to a discussion around the actual job description as it exists and associate salary. Any other thoughts, questions around the job description? Yes, Anthony?
So I will make a motion that we amend essential function 5 to strike the number 10. So it says at least 20 pounds.
Is there a second to that? I'm sorry, Anthony. Further discussion around the finance coordinator, payroll specialist job description. Okay, all those in favor? That is 8 and opposed. Okay, any were there abstentions? No.
Yes, I did.
All right, we'll move on to item 10.5, which is a report on the MSBA Delegate Assembly held on October 19th. Our delegate was Jamie Johnson, and the backup was Ashley Nishu. Would you like to report, Jamie?
Yeah. So we met on Saturday the 19th, like Anthony prepared me for. It was like 3 hours. So the meeting started with a budget report. The dues were increased by only 2.5%, which was the lowest in the past 4 years. They then moved to elect the president and vice president. I don't know if you guys are familiar with these people, Joe Long and Roy Gott. I didn't know who they were. We went over bylaws and constitution. These were reviewed and we just voted to provide clarifying language. There were no significant changes. Then we moved on to the resolutions. Steve Bailey mentioned that local school boards are allowed to propose resolutions, and these can be provided in June when MSMA sends out their call for resolutions. So I just thought we might want to be on the lookout for that because we've never really mentioned it at a meeting before, so we could put it, on the agenda maybe or something just to say like if we have any. Because if you went through the resolutions, you notice at the end, or no, actually proposed their own resolution. So, and it did pass. All the resolutions passed, and there were no real significant changes made. AI was discussed. I did put forth an amendment, and I did express our concerns. I was actually very shocked because it was kind of met with crickets.
Yeah.
There wasn't, I ended up withdrawing my motion to change it because I didn't have any interest. No one else wanted to take up. Somebody seconded it and then she withdrew her second, so. But it was a really good conversation. So I'm glad I did put forth the amendments because that was probably the one that we talked about the most. And, the end of it was that in the resolution, it writes that, we encourage each district to come up with their own policy. And MSMA really wants to leave this in the control of local boards because every board's gonna have a different take on it. And so I did vote in favor of it in the end, just because I think this is something that we're gonna have to take up as a board, and it is a policy that is on the list for this year, so.
Anything you wanted to add, Ashley? No? Any questions for Jamie? No? I will, oh, sorry.
I'd be curious to know if any of the discussion around AI included the recently announced lawsuit by a parent whose son, 14-year-old son, committed suicide because an AI encouraged him to.
No, we, there was a lot of conversation about from different school districts that have tackled AI. A lot of them have had their boards have had extensive presentations from teachers, IT, and they've gotten guidance from, other, what do I want to say? They've gotten guidance from college professors that are in, so I think what Teresa and I had talked about was looking into getting input from other people about how AI is being currently used in school. And the impact that it does have, both good and bad, and going from there. But I definitely, this is something we need to research more, because it seems like other districts have gone much deeper than we have.
Okay. Anything else? I'll just say that Carrie and I do our best to set the agendas, but we may or may not remember when those MSMA issues come back up. So if anyone does catch wind of it, if you give us a reminder, it'll be helpful to make sure we get it on. Okay, very good. Yes, Peter.
We have, if I'm not mistaken, do we have an AI policy coming up or something like that? Is that right, or?
I think you just said we do.
Yeah,
It's on the
do,
list.
but yeah, I know the list is quite long
Yeah.
and extensive, and
Yeah, I mean, we haven't made any agendas. We haven't talked about when it will be put forth in committee, but we have discussed the need for it this year. So I don't have a date or anything, but as a committee, we know that it's on there.
because I believe it's something that is occurring currently, because we actually have been notified that something that is occurring in our district as we speak, yet
Yeah.
we might want to have more
Yeah, I feel
discussion
like-
on how it's being used in our district.
Yeah, I feel like cell phone policy and AI are definitely two popular ones that we need to attack soon. So,
Attack them.
tackle.
Okay.
We're gonna get on our soapbox.
Yes.
Move over a bit. Yeah, we need a bigger box.
All right. So we'll move on now. If you recall, we had pulled some items from the consent agenda. We'll get to those now. There was a desire to pull essentially all of 8.2. So we'll discuss that individually now, and that is a motion. I'll entertain motions to review and adopt superintendent recommendation of job descriptions. 8.2.1, K-12 visual arts coordinator, VPA curriculum leader. This is a new stipend position. Item 8.2.2, which is K-12 performing arts coordinator, auditorium manager, also a new stipend position. And item 8.2.3, which is director of guidance services. Is there a motion for that? Kyle, is there a second? Jamie? Okay, discussion. Anthony?
I have the same objection to these three job descriptions as to the finance coordinator, payroll specialist, and including the word "at least" with a range is logically indefensible. It just shows, if that's the guidance from legal, then we should ask them to clarify that, because it is, you can't have at least this or that. But I'll rest there, because I don't think that anybody else agrees with me.
Any other discussion around this? Okay, yes?
I'll just say, I understand what you're saying from, in terms of the word "at least" being a range, but I don't know as though I'm comfortable making a change to a resume or a description, and they're not all being changed. So if it's something that you wanted to have legal look into, I would support that.
No.
But not a.
All right. Any further comments, questions, discussion? All those in favor of the motion?
What's the motion?
The motion is to approve these job.
Oh, okay.
Yes, job descriptions, yes. Okay, that is, and opposed? It's an 8-1. The motion passes. We'll now move on to, we also pulled a couple of policies. This was their first reading. So I'll entertain a motion for the consideration and approval of the policy committee recommended first reading and acknowledgement of policies. We'll start with 8.5.1, BDA, Board Organizational Meeting Revised.
So moved.
Peter, seconded by Kyle. Discussion around 8.5.1. Peter.
I might be overlooking it, but you crossed out the finance committee being by ballot. So we're no longer voting on the finance committee?
So,
I can answer it.
oh yeah, go ahead, yeah.
So the need to ballot vote the finance committee is unique to our district. We looked at the kind of template policies from MSMA, as well as any kind of rules or even local requirements to have a ballot vote at finance committee. It did not exist, so that change was just made so it'll be just like every other committee, which I believe is appointment by the chair. Yeah. Is there something you wanted to add?
No, I thought when I got here, I was like, oh, this is a rule I didn't know about.
Well, I mean,
And turns out it was just this rule, right? I thought it was
Well,
like a
it's our
requirement.
district's.
Right, no,
prerogative.
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We certainly can
Yep.
do that if we'd like to. It's come up a few times where we've had, ballot votes to both add and remove and modify, even just the beginning of this year. So it seemed more cumbersome than necessary. But
To me, it's what it, I'm a little bit of a traditionalist, it's what we've always done.
sure.
That particular committee is, was always been elected. So it seems weird that I can understand, maybe we don't want to have to do a written ballot if that's the real issue, but all of a sudden we're completely changing how we operate. And I was also concerned how a significant change in how we operate just got thrown, unless somebody, this is one of the things I don't like about this particular way of doing some of our subcommittee meetings.
Sure.
On just, a decision's made by a small group and hopefully it's not seen by the rest. I realize that's not the idea, but.
I think a small group made a decision and a report was made. The statement about what was changing was
But then
given,
it
and
got
it
put
gave
under
you
the-
the opportunity to have this
I hope you
discussion.
didn't feel like I was trying to sneak this by you,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I made it a point in my report to say that, because I knew that was a significant change. And so, that was never the intention.
But, so to me, it should be, I just don't see why we should not continue what we've done since probably the board was created, why we don't continue to vote for these three positions.
Just want to clarify, 'cause I think I misunderstood when Jamie gave her report. When you said that we were no longer voting by ballot, I just assumed the paper ballot was gone, but we were still voting for that committee. That's not.
That was
this is
my
removing
initial
that
thought,
from-
too.
This is removing it completely.
So,
Is that the case?
yeah, I believe the way this is written so that the finance committee is treated just like the other committees, as far as how membership is approved, and that is by nomination of the chair.
I would make an amendment at this point to reverse back that the finance committee, well, that's just the simplest thing, was to get rid of that cross. If the paper ballot is the issue and we're worried about time,
So,
just because,
so this is first reading as well, so
Yeah.
this is amendment, you're proposing an amendment to do
basically to
specific?
take that cross out of, from the word "and" through chair of the committee, chair of that committee, and keep it as is. If we're really concerned, but I'm willing to change my amendment, if it ever gets a second, to add something about paper ballot in there if we want to get rid of that option, but.
Okay, to restore the,
Yeah.
so basically restore the finance committee to exactly the way we're doing right now.
Yeah.
So
Any
remove the cross
alteration.
from and then committee.
here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Is
if
it-
I'm not
Hold on.
yeah.
Is there a second for that?
Yep.
Okay, Kyle. Okay,
And if
now
I'm not
it's-
mistaken, if I look at is it not fall, I thought it fell to the finance chair who was number 3. If you're not here, I'm not here, doesn't it fall to the finance chair?
They would still be electing their chair.
To run the meeting?
You're right, no, it was.
Yeah, I think it falls, so to me, that means not you, but your position would be, to me, that's another reason why that should be an elected position, because I do believe that's always been policy. I've never seen it used, but it went chair, vice chair, and then head of finance.
I don't know.
Anyone else? Anthony?
I think Peter's comments are well taken, and I will be supporting his amendment.
Okay. Anyone else? I appreciate everyone's desire to maintain tradition, but I certainly continue to feel that it's unnecessarily cumbersome to do a paper ballot for the Finance Committee. Just the paper ballot in general, it just seemed to be, it's not particularly easy or smooth or even secret, frankly. So, I mean, I think we might as well take a vote on it or maybe change it in some other way, but I don't think a paper ballot restoration is a good idea. Alex?
I don't see paper ballot written out. Why do we, I mean, can we
Well, it
do
says by ballot.
Oh, it does say that.
And I'm more than willing to change, I'm not sure who seconded it, my thing to by vote, or something like that.
Okay. Do you want to change?
I'm willing to change, where's the wording? Where's our
The
wordsmiths?
words right here, so just
So,
By vote.
continue to just strike the by ballot, remove the entire strike, but just continue to strike by ballot.
Right, and you'd have to replace ballot by vote or something, right?
No, because you've got
Oh, you're
elect,
saying election.
Oh, okay.
elections in there, so.
Joe,
Yes.
I don't want to remove just by ballot because we do need to have the board chair and the vice chair by ballot.
Hold on a second.
So can I make an amendment?
Well, we haven't, hold on, no. You can't, because we haven't even, maybe eventually, but right now, Kyle, are you agreeing to continue to second
Yes.
Peter's amendment? So it's right now just striking by ballot,
Yeah, it's okay.
right? The strike has been reduced to just by ballot. Are you clear on what's going on?
Yeah, I'm just going to say it out loud.
Yes.
So the First Amendment is to restore that last section so that the way we elect is restored.
Yes.
The amendment to the amendment is to remove by ballot from that restored language.
Actually, no, we changed that initial amendment to include that in it. So there's only one amendment on the ground right now.
I think she said that.
You have an amendment and then you,
Well, he's withdrawing the amendment?
oh,
Or
I
law-
did
he's-
withdrawn.
Well,
I didn't
actually,
hear that
wait, it
either.
shouldn't
Right,
say
right.
withdrawn. Hasn't been withdrawn, but it's been, the amendment has been
Amended.
amended, it's been
Advised.
revised.
Revised.
The amendment has been revised to remove the strike of the last statement.
Okay, so we don't
With the
need to
exception of
indicate
by
a
ballot.
second thing. It can just be
Correct.
revising that First Amendment. Okay?
Needs to be a second.
Yeah,
Wait, and Kyle maintained the second. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's helpful. Thank you.
All right, so now we are discussing the revised amendment, which is just the strike of by ballot. Jamie, you had some thoughts.
More questions. I just want to make sure everyone knows that if we strike just by ballot, that also includes the board chair and vice chair as well. That's all,
I find the ballots to be silly.
You
I don't know,
personally-
I've done it a few times, but it does not really feel like the ballots are not secretive. I mean,
there's 9 of us, so we can figure it
Well, you're supposed to sign them.
right, I don't know, it says, you're supposed to put our name on them. I mean, so I don't think that, I think the ballot in general is an interesting practice that we've had, but, yeah, so, I don't know. I'm trying to see if there are other implications here that you have for the board chair and the vice chair election. I don't believe so. It's still just an election, which we could then just do by voice vote for all of these. Conceivably, if that's how we choose to do the election. Right. All right, so this amendment, is there any further discussion on this amendment? Okay, all those in favor?
Okay.
That is Kyle, Jamie, Alex, Peter, Chrysalis, everyone but me.
No, I think-
No, is there, and Bree, there we go.
Are you gonna give me the chance?
I guess those opposed, we might have said it would have been easier to do.
Okay.
And
Did you go?
were there abstentions? No,
No.
okay, just making sure. All right, so now we are back to an amended, the amended first reading. So the first reading has now been amended so that just the by ballot has been struck from that last section of the paragraph. Any more discussion around the policy? Okay. Oh, there is plenty. I turned my head. I don't know who was first.
So we put the first sentence back that says the first committee, finance committee member will be chair of that committee, but then we have below that each committee will elect its chair. So that's contradicting the first sentence.
Right, and again, I'm not necessarily supportive of having all that come back in here. I'm more supportive of the committee electing its own chair, but I believe there was some feeling that since the finance committee chair had some third level authority beyond from the vice chair, that was one of the rationales for putting this election process back into place. So are there any people that feel strongly one way or the other? Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead. It says,
No,
you do
Peter
want-
can go.
Okay.
Right. I go, it's as simple as another word of all other instead of each committee or something like that.
Right.
You know, committees.
Okay, well, I just want to be clear. We want the finance committee to be, the chair of the finance committee is to be elected by us.
Yes.
As opposed to, okay. That's something we'll have to clarify as Ashley raised. And I'm not sure which way we're going. Anthony, do you want to?
So I was gonna suggest that we just send this back to the committee.
Yeah.
So that we don't have to do this here. And the committee has the benefit of having heard some of this conversation and the concerns, and it might be more efficiently done that way. So I will move that we send this back to committee for the next agenda.
Okay, seconded by Jamie.
Oh, no, I wasn't saying.
Is there a second? Kyle? All right, any discussion around sending this back to committee?
Well, I was just gonna say, what Peter is saying is correct, which is that because, like Ashley pointed out, the redundancy in it, and the reason that is because if this passed, we were gonna strike other and put all.
Great.
But now we just need to restore the other.
Yeah, I just, as long as that's, I think the only reason why I'm hesitant to send it back to committee is I think there is that unresolved issue in my mind anyway of how the chair is picked or how the chair should be picked.
Yeah, send it back.
But any other discussion around sending this back to committee? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Would it come back as another first reading or as a second?
It would come back as another first reading, yeah.
Yeah, because it never gets, you won't be voting
Well,
on the first.
it depends, it depends. Why don't, we can say we'll table it, or postpone this to the following meeting while, essentially, why don't we, you mind amending your motion to postpone the discussion around this item until the subcommittee has a chance, the committee has a chance to review and provide revised language. Otherwise, yeah, we'll be in a place where we need to vote this down.
This is first reading.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
It's probably cleaner for me to just
Withdraw?
Withdraw the motion and then,
It's clearer for me too.
Okay.
yeah, I was thinking of that. And I will now make a motion to table this till the next meeting to give time for the policy committee to review this and make another recommendation, or at least comment.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be more the next appropriate meeting, because the next meeting, they won't have time to do it, right?
So, I don't want to get too in the weeds on this, but you postpone to a specific meeting, you table without an indefinite period of time. So, we could table this and decide to take it off the table. It would require a vote to take it back off the table if we do table. Or if we postpone to a next meeting, it just comes back on our agenda. So I don't want to, like...
I was gonna say that, but I was not gonna, I didn't. I was like, oh.
But I wasn't either until Peter talked about it, maybe not next meeting, but because the motion was for next meeting. So I think the cleanest way to do this, after thinking about it here, is that we should just, if we want to send this back to committee, we should just not acknowledge the first reading by vote, okay? And have the subcommittee, have the committee review this and send us back a new first reading for whenever it's ready, whether it's next meeting or the meeting after.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay.
So we're just not gonna vote?
No, we're going to vote.
Oh.
We're going to vote, but hopefully folks will vote this down. Yes.
Okay.
You were in charge of this while I was gone.
Yeah, see how that's gone.
So. We'll go to a vote, unless there's any further discussion around this, we'll just go to a vote now. All right.
And it's voting on the amended,
As amended.
yeah, as amended,
Yep,
okay.
but it's, yes. So, all those in favor of acknowledging the first reading, raise your hand.
What are we doing? We're just
Well,
acknowledging it.
Yes, if we acknowledge the first reading, we would go to a second reading. Okay, so.
So this never happened?
No, we're just.
It happened. There will be minutes to reflect.
Yes, yes. All right, all those opposed to acknowledgement of the first reading? Okay. That
Feels very sad.
That is
I will
unanimous.
voted on that one.
All right.
I'm sweating.
We still have one more. We still have another one. And that is the consideration and approval of the policy committee recommended first reading and acknowledgement of policy JIE pregnant students, which is a new policy. Is there a motion from the floor for that?
So,
Peter, is there a second? Anthony, discussion. Peter.
Wait, I'm sorry, who had the motion?
Peter.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go into the weeds of some of my normal parental concerns on this one, but it does fall, my one question falls around parental notification. And that is, when a student is in this situation, I'm sure there's just so much going on that it's just too much. I'm curious if there is a way that we can change it. So when, under notifications, where it says when a student or their parent or guardian informs any school unit employee of a student's pregnancy, the employee must promptly provide the student. And I understand that this is where it can become questionable. Because if I said right now, I want them to always inform the parents, then we go down another road that I've lost the battle once already on. But I'm curious if there is a option to, instead of the word or, put the word and after guardian or thereabouts, put if appropriate or whatever the terminology would be. It boils down to my concern is that if this Title I coordinator finds out from the student, and only the student, that they're pregnant, and that, okay, this is all the stuff that you are now in rights of, these are your rights. But if the parents didn't tell them, how do we ensure that there's a communication like from the Title IX coordinator that can I tell all this information to your parents? Because I think the parents should know this if the student is willing to have them know it. That way the parents know all the rights that this student needs, but I don't want it to be lost because the Title IX coordinator doesn't want to tell the parents if the student, I think you understand.
If the student wants the parents to know, the parents will know.
Yeah.
Period.
But I want to ensure that that conversation takes place, and that's why, like, sometimes I'd like to have that, normally we have, like, we'll take the faith that it's going to happen, but I'd like to see some sort of wording in here that enforces that the Title IX coordinator asks the student, saying, can I inform your parents of all this information? If the student says no, then that's a whole different ballgame, but I just don't want it to be, that's all. I'm sure it happens, but I just would like to have some straight there. Ashley?
Are we legally able to tell a parent whether the child wants to or not?
I think that's, before we amend this, I think we've got to have that legal information, right? Because that, regardless of how individual people feel about it, teenagers have legal rights that we can't violate. Like, regardless of what we think, we cannot violate their legal rights, and they have legal rights on this topic. And so before we change anything, if that's sort of the will of the board, I will strongly urge everyone to, like, let us get legal counsel, because we cannot violate their rights.
And where I was going was trying to not,
Yeah, no,
I went down this road last time and
yeah,
got something handed to me. So this time I'm just trying to think to still give the kid that right, but just to enforce that they are told, hey, I'd like, you know, your parents ought to know this too, so that as you're dealing with a situation, some of your personal rights aren't being infringed on.
So I know we had this long conversation last year, and I'll just add that I think nobody at school wants to not have parents know any of this stuff. Like, it's worse for the adults if a kid is digging in and saying they don't, like, we don't want that. So we always want the partnership, 100% all the time. So I guess I would just urge the assumption that we want the parent in partnership. That is always the assumption, and very, very rarely, and putting adults in uncomfortable positions when the student has dug in and wants to maintain their legal rights. Like, that is not a comfortable place for us to be, but unfortunately that's where we have to be, right, in some cases.
So I am sitting here feeling like we just, a whole new avenue has kind of popped in my mind. It's something we've done before, but it is actually acknowledge first reading, send it back to committee, and have a second reading. We did it before on policies last year. And I don't know why we didn't just do that with the organizational meeting policies just a few minutes ago. I don't know. But that certainly is an option in front of us, to acknowledge the first reading, send it back to subcommittee, and have a revised second reading. But go ahead, Jamie.
Well, I just wanted to say, like, this is a Title IX policy. It's a required policy from legal. Our district, and Title IX is one of those things. It's the same thing as, like, you know, individuals with disability. We don't want to mess with Title IX. So I agree, Carrie, that if we want to make any changes, it even says it at the top of the policy. Changes to this policy should be discussed with legal counsel to ensure that they meet applicable legal requirements. So, yes, I agree. I would be very hesitant to change this terminology. I also want to point out something that people might not know, which is that even in a hospital situation, if a person comes in to be treated and they are pregnant and they are a minor, because they are pregnant, they are no longer considered a minor, and we do not have to inform their parents. So pregnant people have different levels of privacy based on that condition that other people don't, which is another layer to this policy that goes deeper. So, I'm sorry.
Teresa actually was first.
I was just going to point out what Jamie did. The part at the top typically would have been removed. The committee saw that and discussed it when they unanimously recommended that this come forward as it is. So I just wanted to point out
We
that
should strike that anyway.
yeah, it will be struck out, but it's somewhat ironic, I think, that it's here because we're now discussing making
Yes.
changes. And
Go ahead, Karen.
So I just want to take a minute to like celebrate this policy in the ways that a girl who's in this school cannot be discriminated against because she's pregnant, and a celebration of like how we would be obligated to assist her should she have a child here, like, and it is not that recent, not that far back when it would be encouraged that a student would leave school, that they would not be able to like do any of the things that this policy sort of mandates us to do. So I think there's the flip side of that, is that history of sort of saying you're pregnant, you need to drop out, you need to go somewhere else. That would not be, and certainly was the practice, but this puts it into legal requirement that a student who's pregnant has rights and has the right to ask for accommodations, and we're obligated to do that. So I think that's sort of like the reason for it.
And I just want to emphasize, I'm not
Oh, I agree.
against
I understand
any of
that,
that.
Peter.
I just want to make sure
Totally.
that they have those rights. My concern is if a young lady in this circumstance might feel overwhelmed, and to be the parent's ability to help fight for these.
So I think the real thing we need to take a vote on here is whether we want to send this back to subcommittee to consult legal counsel about this topic, or whether we don't. And I think an amendment to that effect, or to amend the acknowledgement to include the policy subcommittee to reconsider before the second reading and seek the opinion of legal counsel on the matter of parental notification. Is there?
Did we already get legal counsel on this?
Yes.
Already?
Yes.
So does anyone want to make that amendment request to send this back to subcommittee to consult legal on the issue of parental consultation? Do you want to make that
Well,
amendment?
But I didn't want to, yes, but
Yes, but.
emphasize what I'm referring to in parental notification. They're immediately going to say, no, the parent cannot be notified
Okay.
if the student doesn't want it. That's a given. I'm not arguing that fact.
Sure.
All I'm requesting is that to ensure and to add some strength to the policy, saying that whoever the Title IX coordinator or their designate, or whoever the person is, make sure that they request or ask, can I let your parents know? And that's what I'm asking about,
So does-
not whether parental notification.
Does policy committee feel like they understand the nuance of what Peter's saying?
Absolutely.
Yes. So I think it's hard to put that into the motion.
Yeah, but
But I think by sending it back to the policy committee to review and consult legal around that, they will consult with that nuance in mind.
If the board wishes.
If this amendment passes. So would you like to put that amendment?
Yes, absolutely. Please.
Is there a second to the amendment? Okay, so that is an amendment to send this back to committee for review prior to the second reading with, which will include a consultation of legal counsel around Peter's concerns of parental notification.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Who did the second?
It's Kyle.
Thank you.
Are you clear on the amendment? Yes.
As amended.
Clear enough? Okay. All right. So, discussion around the amendment. All right. All those in favor of amending the first reading acknowledgement to send this back to committee and consult with legal? All those in favor? That's 5. All those opposed? That's 3. And I'm actually abstaining.
Can I have the 3, please?
That is Jamie, Crystal, and Bree. All right, so as amended, we have a first reading as amended, just discussed, I don't need to repeat it. Is all in favor of acknowledging the first reading with that amendment?
I think we're supposed to vote yes on this one.
The original, like,
no,
the first, yes.
We are acknowledging that we have read this policy
Yes, and it's
and
going
are
back.
applying the
Yes.
amendment that we just approved. So we'll be sending this back. So all those in favor of acknowledging the first reading of the pregnant students policy as amended, raise your hand. Just want to double check, that's 5. All those opposed? Wait, it's 3. It was 6. It was 6, okay. And that is 3 opposed. Right. Moving on to. What are we moving on to? Request to enter into an executive session for the purpose of the Tri-Town Education Association, TTEA, for labor contract negotiations pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056D. Would anyone like to make that motion? Anthony, seconded by Kyle. All those in favor of entering executive session? Okay, that is unanimous. Thank you very much.